Of Côte d'Ivoire. For this statement, I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Minister. We would like to welcome you in your capacity as President of the Security Council and would like to thank you for organizing the meeting today. Mediation and prevention of conflicts which threaten international peace and security is indeed one of the more important issues for the UN and the world as a whole. We are grateful to the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as well as to the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Elders, Ms. Mary Robinson and Mr. Ban Ki-moon, grateful to them for their statements. It is without doubt that it's important to strengthen the UN potential in conflict prevention. The UN Charter and the decisions made by member states provide us with all of the tools necessary in this regard. And this is contained first and foremost in chapters 1 and 6 of the Charter, as well as in decisions made by member states, in particular in Security Council Resolution 2171, which enshrines the fundamental principle of international assistance in this area. In the recent years, the UN Secretariat, Security Council, as well as regional and sub-regional entities conducted sizable work to analyze the causes of the crises and the ways of their prevention. Despite that fact, there is no universal and/or exhaustive list of conflict indicators. And this is not surprising because the practice of Security Council, the experience of Security Councils shows us that each situation has its own unique set of factors in affecting its development. And this in turn means that there can be no universal formula for problem resolution. Each situation requires a sensitive, balanced, and impartial approach, very patient search for solutions. And that is why it is not possible to use any kind of a set template. We are convinced that any international assistance can only be conducted provided there is consent on the parties to a dispute. It has to be impartial and it shouldn't contain any preconditions. What is also unacceptable are double standards or a veiled political game aimed at overturning a legitimate authority. Unfortunately, such situations can be frequently encountered nowadays, and this objectively makes states more suspicious when it comes to mediation. Suffice it to quote the examples of the situations in Iraq, Libya, and Syria. The consequences of crises there, which resulted from a shameless outside invasion, is something the international community is still dealing with today. But some people learn nothing from history. The selfsame approach is being applied to Venezuela today, where the acute phase of the crisis began precisely because of the result of sanctioned pressure from outside and direct external interference. It is not surprising, therefore, that the most successful mediation efforts today are being conducted by those states which had the presence of mind not to take sides in the Venezuela confrontation. Mr. President, success in crisis prevention and settlement can only be obtained through painstaking collective search, political and diplomatic solutions on the basis of an inclusive direct dialogue of parties involved. And the UN, as the most authoritative and representative organization, has every opportunity to play the central role in international mediation. The good offices missions by the Secretary UN and his special envoys are still in demand. We think at the same time that the selection of UN mediators be conducted on the basis of objective criteria and whilst keeping regional balance. It is also important to make sure that the potential regional and sub-regional organizations is used in line with Chapter 8 of the Charter. Their deep knowledge of the nuance of conflicts means that such mediators can better understand the situation and therefore come up with more objective and realistic proposals on how to bring sides closer together. In particular, we note with satisfaction that the African countries are actively undertaking the initiative to resolve the continent's problems. The leadership of the African Union indeed can be rightly proud of this. In this context, I would like to underscore what's been done by the AU in Central Africa and South Sudan. even though obviously they still have a lot of work in front of them. We assess very positively the work being conducted by the UN Regional Center in Central Asia. It's based on the principles of neutrality, objectivity, and cooperation with the governments of Central Asian states, and it is aimed on cooperation with regional integration associations, such as, for example, EUROSEC, CSTO, and SCO. We see that there is a great potential there for the development of partnerships between the UN and these organizations. They are increasing their political authority and their contribution to strengthening regional and international security. We stand ready to jointly develop preventive diplomacy as well. But at the same time, we think that prevention is not something that should be considered as a cure, panacea cure for all ills, and it cannot become a shield for the interference into internal affairs of sovereign states. Their consent on this kind of the UN involvement is, for us, a key criteria. Mr. President, in conclusion, I would like to underscore that many problems in the world today could be avoided if only some of our colleagues in Security Council, instead of lecturing, using sanctions and unilateral measures of economic coercion, could assign the highest priority to the interest of those states whom they claim they want to help. These kinds of unilateral approaches based on the blind belief in one's own exceptionalism, righteousness, unwillingness to listen to others, does not permit to come up with an agreed collective approach by the Security Council. Worse, it significantly undermines the UN authority. And if we could overcome such an erroneous and short-sighted behavior, then the potential of our organization in conflict prevention and mediation would significantly increase. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation.